In today's digital age, managing and analysing large amounts of data has become crucial. Staring at rows and rows of Excel sheets just doesn't make any sense. You need to be able to take that data and analyse it into something that you are able to visualise. This is where pivot tables come in. Pivot tables are an easy way to transform your Excel sheets from this all the way to this. In today's video, we're going to have a look at how pivot tables are going to supercharge your data and help you gain valuable insights for you to be able to report. Let's get into it.
Okay, so there's two rules for pivot tables just before we begin. The first thing is to make sure that your data is in a table format, so we have the headers at the top, and the second rule is that you shouldn't have totals within the table because this is going to then duplicate the addition of any data that you're going to group together. So these are two important rules that you should really follow. Now, I like to put my data tables into a table format. So if we just click here and we just highlight the data set, Control T to add the data into a table. Now this step is not necessary, but I would highly recommend it so that if you add any other data within the table, it will dynamically update the pivot tables. Otherwise, you're going to have to get your data tables updated and then you'll have to refresh every single one, which really doesn't help you. Okay, so now that we have a data into a table, we can now go across to Insert, Pivot Table. So within Excel, there are recommended pivot tables. And so if you're new to this, this could help, but they might not all make sense. So you just need to go through and have a look. What we're going to do is we're going to do a department-wise quantity sold. So here we're going to add a pivot table ourselves, and you go to table and range. We go to either existing sheet or a new worksheet, so you can add it wherever you want. Now, once we've come to this kind of box, what you'll find is you have pivot table fields over here in the order of what your table has, and you have different columns and different boxes here. So some are filters, some are columns and rows, which are the ones that we're going to be using, and you have values. So we want to put the department on the rows. So we take the department, drag it in here, and then we are going to go for quantity sold. So we're going to add the sum of the quantity sold by department. Second thing that we're going to have a look at is how to group different elements within your pivot table. So what we want to do here is we want to group the food and the non-food departments together, which are not anywhere in the table, but as we have a list here, we can easily add them. What we do need to do is we can put them all together, or we can highlight them and add them to a group. So two ways to do this: you can move across. So you go over here and you can move across. Cereals, beverage, clothing is a non-food, condiments is, you can drag it up here, or if you want now dairy to come here, you can type it in. And the other way to do it is simply just highlight. So you can select the ones that are already food and press Control, then go to fruit, go to meat. Oops, there we go, just highlight that again. Go to fruit, go to meat, go to pasta, and now right click and go here to group. Now this is going to create something called a group one, but it has put all of your food items together as you've defined it. So this could be anything that you would like to define. Now you have the rest of the departments here, which we can now once again highlight, right click, group, and we can add non-food here. And it's easily to ungroup as well. You could just once again highlight it and ungroup if you want to do that. And now you can collapse, hide, and have a look at everything here. Now we're going to have a look at how to calculate a field within your pivot table. So this means that within your table, you don't have the data, and you can easily have a formula that can help you generate a a column. So what we want to do here is, if we look at our original data, we only have the units sold and we only have a unit price, and we don't have here a total. What we want to do is multiply this column here by this column. So very simple to do. Let's go back to our pivot table, click into the pivot table, go across to pivot table, analyze, field, items and sets. Now here, calculated field. So we can write here total sales. And how do we calculate this? So the formula is, it starts you off here, equals, we go to quantity sold, insert the field, multiplied by the unit price, insert the field. Now this, press OK, and now you have the sum of total sales over here. Okay, now that you have a table, you might want to start cleaning it up. So you can change your data formats and simply just change it into a number. You can go across here and have it changed to a currency. And once again, you can remove the decimals. Now, by default, when we have a pivot table, it comes up with a sum of or a count of or whatever function you have added into the value. How to clean this is just remove the sum of, and if you just do that and press OK, you'll come up with an error message where it says pivot table field name already exists. So what you need to do is just go to the end of the title here and have a space, and it simply will clean it up there. If you spell it any differently or have any other changes in the title, it won't make any difference, but by default, Excel will detect that it's exactly the same. So by adding a space just helps you to name it correctly. So once again, you can change the format to however you like. Now, if you want to make a table which is slightly more detailed, what you can do is perhaps add a department just before the item name. Now, it looks very messy in this configuration, so we're going to go across to the pivot table, analyze here to design, and then we go to report layout and go to tabular form. This will help separate out a lot of the data so it's easier for you to read. Now, what you can do is you can remove the subtotals. So go to report layout, you can repeat all of the label items, so it adds it here. You can right click and remove the subtotals, so it makes it a little bit cleaner. You can put the department before the name or after the name, and also remove, here we go, the subtotals. So you now have item name, department name, quantity sold. You have a number of different options here with colors, and you can have things like banded rows, or we can change it to banded columns as well. And you might not want totals at the bottom, so you do have options here as well as in the settings, so you can click on and off the totals right here. Okay, another powerful feature is the feature of filtering right here. So what you can do is, if you want to have highlighted the first 3 top selling quantity sold from each department, you could go across here, you could go to value filters, and you go down to top 10, but now here we're going to change it to top 3. You could also use this for bottom 3 or any of the other features that you want to add. Go to items, you can have it by percentage, by sum, etc. So let's press OK, and there you have then the top 3 departments that are not sorted here, but you do have the top 3 departments that show you within food and non-food. Now let's have a look at this data set over here. The one thing that we might want to know is how many products are from each country. But within this table, you have a number of repeated countries. So you have a laptop, which is from the USA, you have instant coffee from USA. So this in a pivot table will not allow you to give you a distinct count or a unique count. It would always sum up or would count every single one. So in this instance here, it would count 1, would count 2, would count 3. And what we want to do is to make sure that if we sold, for example, a laptop from the USA, so if we just go and filter this and have a look, we have USA laptop and we have USA laptop. So we want to make sure that this in our pivot table only appears once and not duplicated in the amount of sales that it has in the table. So there's a very interesting way to do this. What we need to do is add the data into a data table. So click within your data table, go into insert, and now when we click onto pivot table, you have different options. We are going to add this to a data model. So we click onto it and go to a new worksheet. Now what happens is you have the table data here and you have this within a data model. So what we could do is take the country and put it here in the rows, and we can go to the item name and we can see how many total items are available. Now once again, if you notice, it's 100 and our data set is 100 rows, so this doesn't make any sense. What we need to then do, this is still counting, you go across value field settings, and if you scroll to the bottom, you have distinct count here. So if you notice, now there are only 21 unique items that are available from these countries. So now that we have our sales here, we might want to have a look at how each of these score in terms of percentage. So what we could do is just right click and we can show value as percentage of column total. So in the data set, you may want to know what percentage each of the data sets has within your sales. So instead of then going one by one and having the percentage to dynamically do this, you could add the row here again. So what we could do, just use your format painter and we could change that. Now here we're going to put percentage because that's what it is. So instead of changing that, we change it to percentage and then right click. And we're going to show these as a percentage of the column total, and there you have it. So if you add all of these up, they don't add up. Okay, so if you want to have a look at the percentage of each of these quantities, what do they represent out of the total? There's a very easy way to do this. You could drag in once again the quantity, so you have the sum sold. You can change this to percentage. And now what we do is you go right click, go to show value as, and we're going to show it as the column total. So if you notice, it's 100% here, and it now gives you a nice percentage of how the sales are. Now this is just another pivot table that's been dragged in with the dates rather than the departments, and what you could have a look at is it does have a different levels of dates here which can be open to each. So if you want to remove things like the quarters, or you want to remove months and you just want to keep the years, you could do that as well. So what we can do is we can also have a look at how to see the growth from the period before. What we need to do, once again, we drag in the sales. So we can drag in total sales here, and we can now try to see what the percentage difference is between both. So here I've just pulled in two of the columns. We can right click here, go to show value as, and we need to do percentage difference from. So if we do that, we can have a look that we have years, we could have department, we could have sales, but it makes more sense just to do the years because each of the data fields here are years. The base item is 2017, press OK, and now we have a percentage. So it shows you what the growth is from each of the years. Another nice way to have a look at how the data is represented. Okay, we're going to have a look at slicers. These are really interesting features that you could add and would help you also to develop into dashboards. So today we'll have a brief touch on how to create these. So once again, click into your table, go across to pivot table analyze, and you have options here where you have insert slicer and insert timeline. So for this, we're going to insert a timeline, and we're going to write the date sold. And if you notice, now you have all of your dates here, so you can look at it at months, years or quarters. So let's just put it into years. So let's click into 2021 and it changes that. Now to clear the filter, you press that, and if you notice that none of these are also being changed. So what you need to do is to make sure that these also get changed. So to do that, you click onto your table here and then report connections, and it shows you all of the pivot table connections that you could potentially connect it to. Now, as we don't have any other tables that have dates in it, it won't allow you to do that. So what you can do is now click into another table, go to pivot table, analyze, and go to a slicer. And you can, for example, have a look at the different dates that they're sold in, or you could look at a department that they're sold in, or for example, even a color. And you could click all of these here. And once again, what you can do, arrange them in the way that you want. You can just click onto the department and go to report connections, and you can check the appropriate one that's there. So now if you click beverage, you will then be able to move to the ones that are relevant for beverage. The last thing that we have a look at is how to create a table from your pivot table. So once again, click inside, you can go across to recommended charts, gives you a whole host of options here. Let's go for a pie chart, and there you have it. So anytime the data changes inside your data set, this will dynamically be updated. The nice thing about this is that you could input this directly into any PowerPoint or any other Microsoft application, and it will dynamically refresh once you update your data.
If you found this video helpful, don't forget to subscribe and like for valuable insights and videos just like this one. See you next time.